Hey guys, welcome back. Every day I'm uploading a new video or taking a live session of 10th class biology syllabus. Today's topic is about why sexual reproduction is needed for living organisms. Why the sexual mode of reproduction. Here, in this you will find the picture of bull, and this side you will find calves. Okay, and here bull alone cannot produce new calves. And one more, here you will find the picture of, here this is hen, and this hen alone cannot produce new chicks. So here, in such cases, both the sexes, males and females, are needed to produce new organisms. So that is what involved in sexual reproduction. So both the parent organisms, two parent organisms are involved in sexual mode of reproduction. Okay, and in case of another mode, that is asexual reproduction, single parent organism is involved. And here, moving to the continuation, why the sexual mode of reproduction in living organisms? What is the purpose of this mode? Let's discuss. The creation of two new cells from one involves copying of the DNA as well as of the cellular apparatus. Here the DNA is the genetic material and cellular apparatus is needed for accommodating this DNA. Now, the creation of two new cells from one cell involves copying of the DNA as well as of the cellular apparatus. Now, the DNA copying mechanisms cannot be absolutely accurate. There is always some inaccuracy occurs during DNA copying, and the resultant errors are the source of variations in populations of organisms. So here these variations are the differences in characteristics. These are the differences in characteristics of living organisms. Okay, so here, because of inaccurate DNA copying, because of the errors that are seen during the DNA copying, these differences in characteristics are found in living organisms, and these differences are nothing but the variations. Now, in a population, variations are useful. These variations are useful for ensuring the survival of the species. Okay? For an individual organism, these variations may not be useful, but in a population, these variations are ensuring the survival of the new species. Okay? The survival of the species is ensured because of these variations. So that is the advantage of variations. Now, it would therefore make, if organisms came up with reproduction modes that allowed more and more variations to be generated. So here there are certain modes of reproduction which produce only few variations, like as we discussed in my earlier session. Okay, asexual modes of reproduction like fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, sporulation. In those methods of reproduction, few variations are produced, but here in sexual mode of reproduction, the number of variations produced is large. Okay, many variations are created in sexual mode of reproduction. That is the difference. Now, moving to the continuation here, while DNA copying mechanisms are precise enough to make the generation of variation a fairly slow process. So this is what happens. I repeat this statement once again. Here the DNA copying mechanisms are precise enough to make the generation of variation fairly a slow process. If the DNA copying mechanisms were to be less accurate, many of the resultant DNA copies would not be able to work with the cellular apparatus and would die. So this is what happens. This is what the consequence is if the DNA copying mechanisms were to be less accurate. Many of the resultant DNA copies, because of the variations, because of the abnormal variations, they would not be able to work with the cellular apparatus, and as a result those new cells will die. Okay, so this is what the consequence is. If there are abnormal variations, then they are harmful, the cells will die. But if there are useful variations in long run, that helps in survival of species in a changing environmental conditions, and also it plays very important role as basis for evolution of new organisms in a particular area. So this is the importance of variations that are created during the reproduction process. Now, each new variation is made in a DNA copy that already has variations accumulated from previous generations. Okay, I repeat this statement once again. Each new variation is made in a new DNA copy that already has variations accumulated from previous generations. So here in every generation some of the variations are created, and all these variations get accumulated in every generation. So that is what thus two different individuals in a population would have quite different patterns of accumulated variations. So that is what we say, the variations accumulate in every generation, and it leads to the evolution of new species. It leads to evolution of new species in long run. Okay, after several years these all variations they accumulate, and that results in the evolution of a new species. Since all these variations in living individuals, okay, so here it is assured that they do not have any really bad effects. So these variations which are created in every generation, they are occurring already in a living organism, so that would not show any bad effect in that particular organism. Okay, but if there are abnormal variations in cells, then the cells would die. Okay, so this is how the variations are created, and this is how they show the consequences. If they are useful variations, they enable the organism to adjust in changing environmental conditions, but if they are abnormal, the organisms cannot survive. Okay, so here combining variations from two or more individuals would thus create new combinations of variants. I repeat this once again. Okay, combining variations from two or more individuals would thus create new combinations of variants, and each combination would be novel. I repeat this once again. Each combination would be novel since it would involve two different individuals. So here this is how in every generation new variations can be produced. Okay, now after this, the sexual mode of reproduction incorporates such a process of combining DNA from two different individuals during reproduction. This is what we call recombination process or the crossing over process. Okay, so during this process, what happens? The combination, combining DNA from two different individuals occur. So this is what we call recombination or crossing over, which occurs during meiotic cell division. Okay, and here in each new generation, okay, in each new generation is to be the combination of DNA copies from two pre-existing individuals. Okay, so here one thing, very important aspect here, in case of sexual reproduction, the male gamete fuses with female gamete. Okay, so because of this, there is a formation of zygote. Okay, male gamete is haploid, female gamete is haploid, and this zygote is diploid. Now, in case of sexual reproduction, there is a combining DNA from two different individuals. So, DNA of male parent and DNA of female parent, they join together, they combine and form a new cell, and in that the combination of DNA will be present, that is zygote. So here one very important aspect is, if each new generation is to be the combination of the DNA copies from two pre-existing individuals. Okay, so this is one of the very, very important concepts. Okay, if each new generation is to be the combination of two DNA copies from two pre-existing individuals, then there arises a problem. What can be the problem? This is likely to mess up the control of cellular apparatus by the DNA. Okay, what would be the consequence? This would likely to mess up the control of cellular apparatus by DNA, because in every generation the DNA gets double, and that will not be accommodated in a single cell. So that would likely to mess up the control of cellular apparatus. Here this is a problem created in sexual reproduction. Then how it is solved? Here is a solution. Actually, in organisms, okay, highly evolved organisms, specialized lineages of cells. Okay, so here one solution that many multicellular organisms have found to the problem mentioned above is to have specialized lineages of cells. Okay, if these specialized lineages are cells are present, then that problem of doubling of DNA in every generation, and finally which is leading to not controlled by DNA, that condition is solved because of the special lineages of cells. So here the specialized lineages of cells in specialized organs, in which only half the number of chromosomes and half the amount of DNA as compared to the non-reproductive body cells. Here normally somatic cells, if we see, all these cells have 46 chromosomes. This is what we find in somatic cells. These are the body cells. Now here these specialized lineages of cells, they do not have 46 chromosomes. Instead they have 23 chromosomes. Okay, so here these specialized lineages of cells, these are called germ cells. These are called gametes. Okay, now here the specialized lineages of cells in specialized organs, in which only half the number of chromosomes and half the amount of DNA as compared to the non-reproductive body cells. So here the non-reproductive body cells have 46 chromosomes in humans, and here the reproductive cells, the germ cells or the gametes, they have 23 chromosomes. So this is half the number of 46. So this is what happened. This is achieved by the process of cell division called meiosis. Okay, so in meiosis, reduction division occurs. In meiosis, reduction division is seen. Actually, the diploid cells will divide and form, okay, haploid daughter cells. So this is how diploid parent cells are giving rise to haploid daughter cells in meiosis, and this is the reason the half the number of chromosomes, half the amount of DNA is found in reproductive cells when compared with the DNA and the chromosomes present in the non-reproductive body cells. And this is the importance of meiosis. It has solved the problem which is created because of this sexual reproduction. Here we discussed that in sexual reproduction, male gamete fuses with female gamete and results in zygote. So there is a possibility of combination of DNA of male parent and DNA of female parent. It is resulting in the formation of zygote, which has the DNA of both the parents. So in every generation, if the amount of DNA is doubled, if the number of chromosomes is doubled, then that will be a problem. It cannot be accommodated in cell. So that problem is solved by the meiosis process, which is found in specialized lineages of cells which are called reproductive cells. These cells undergo a reduction division in which diploid parent cells, they divide and produce haploid daughter cells and thereby maintain the constant chromosome number in cells. Okay, so this is the solution to the problem created in sexual reproduction. Now here, when these germ cells, the reproductive cells from two individuals combine during sexual reproduction to form a new individual, it results in re-establishment of the number of chromosomes and the DNA content in the new generation. So this is what happens. Re-establishment of number of chromosomes and the DNA content in the new generation. So it is nothing but the constant chromosome number. Constant chromosome number is maintained in every generation. So this is what happens because of the meiotic division and because of the presence of specialized lineages of cells in highly evolved multicellular organisms. So during sexual reproduction, here gametes are formed, and these gametes are formed by meiosis process, and because of that the constant chromosome number is maintained in every generation. Now moving to the continuation, if the zygote is to grow and develop into an organism which has highly specialized tissues and organ, then it has to have sufficient stores of energy for doing this. I repeat this once again. Zygote is a combination. Here, ovum fuses with sperm to form zygote. This zygote is nothing but fertilized egg. This zygote is nothing but fertilized egg. And here, if the zygote is to grow and is to develop into an organism which has highly specialized tissues and organ, then it has to have sufficient stores of energy for doing this. Okay, so this zygote will develop into embryo, embryo will develop, okay, embryo will develop into fetus, and then fetus is growing into the child. Okay, here it is growing into child. So this is how the development process occurs. Okay, now for that energy is needed. So sufficient stores of energy are needed for doing this. Now here if we look the another important aspect, in very simple organisms, it's seen that two germ cells are not very different from one another, or maybe even similar. The two germ cells are similar in very simple organisms, or they may be they may have a little differences, not much. But as the body designs become more complex, the germ cells specialize. Okay, these germ cells, they are specialized. One germ cell, okay, it is large and it contains food stores. Okay, one germ cell is large, it contains food stores, while the another germ cell is smaller and it is motile. So these are the differences between the two germ cells that are found in the complex multicellular organisms. So I repeat this once again. As the body designs become more complex, the germ cells also specialize. Okay, they specialize like this. One germ cell is large in size and it contains food stores, and the other germ cell is smaller and it is motile. Conventionally, the motile germ cell is called male gamete. Okay, so conventionally the motile gamete is male gamete, and the germ cell containing the stored food is female gamete. Okay, so here the germ cell which is large in size, which stores the food material, that is female gamete. But the germ cell which is smaller and is motile, it is male gamete. So this is how in highly evolved organisms these germ cells are formed. So these germ cells are formed because of meiotic divisions, and this meiosis is found in sexually reproducing organisms. Meiosis is called reduction division because diploid parent cells, okay, in meiosis, diploid parent cells, they are giving rise to haploid daughter cells. So it is a reduction division. This haploid condition is very much important because when these haploid gametes are fusing, then the diploid condition is again maintained in new generation. So this is what sexual reproduction. Now here, coming to a quick recap of the topic that I have discussed. Okay, so here only bulls cannot produce new calves, and only hen cannot produce new chicks. So here, in case of sexual reproduction, two parent organisms are involved. Okay, and here two germ cells are involved. These two germ cells are male gamete is one and the female gamete is the another. So the two parent organisms, they are producing these gametes. The male parent produces male gamete, female parent produces the female gamete, and the fusion of these two gametes result in the formation of zygote. That zygotes develop into embryo and then into offspring. So this is how sexual reproduction occurs in living organisms. And the answer for this question, why the sexual mode of reproduction, the answer is the sexual mode of reproduction is producing more variations. Okay, so because of sexual reproduction, there is a possibility of generation of more variations. Okay, so because of two reasons. One is inaccurate DNA copying, and the other is during the meiosis process. Okay, the recombination occurs. Okay, and that results in variation. So as the sexual mode of reproduction is generating more variations, and these variations are accumulated in every generation, so these variations enable the organism to adjust in changing environmental conditions. And also in long run, the variations which are generated during the sexual mode of reproduction, they are forming the basis for evolution of new species. So this is the importance of variations that are created during sexual mode of reproduction. This is all about today's session. If you are new to my channel, subscribe to my channel, because every day I'm uploading a video or taking a live session of 10th class biology syllabus, and you would get notifications regarding that. If you like